Well, this year's homecoming is particularly special for me because the class of 1987 is on campus celebrating their 25th anniversary. Those are the students I looked up to when I was a student. They were the role models, the source of wisdom. It's great to have them back on campus for you this weekend. And a thrill for us to have Todd Komarnicki here from the class of 87 to speak in chapel this morning. Todd was one of the friendliest, highest energy, most creative students in the class of 1987. Because of the range of his abilities and his gift for friendship, Todd had an unusual ability to bridge friendships among different groups of students on campus. If you had been on campus in those days, you might have seen Todd regularly at the stoop, or maybe as part of what during my whole time at college was a perpetual game of hacky sack going on outside of MSC. Todd was a regular, a mainstay in that group. Maybe you met Todd first in the context of athletics because he played on the baseball team, was kind of an IM junkie. And maybe if you knew Todd that way, you were a little surprised when you started to learn of some of his creative and artistic gifts. But maybe you didn't realize Todd was an athlete at all because you had encountered him at workout or at arena theater. You had been in one of the classes where he was developing a passion for creative writing. You enjoyed his natural gift for storytelling. We are so proud of Todd's accomplishments. As you may know, he's a novelist, dramatist, screenwriter, movie producer, director for film and television. He's worked with some people whose names you may recognize: Halle Berry, James Caan, Will Ferrell, Julia Ormond, Bruce Willis. Most recently, been working to produce the Sully Sullenberg story, Miracle on the Hudson. Or maybe you're familiar with his modestly successful Christmas film for children of all ages, Elf. I saw it for maybe the 8th time last night. It's still laugh out loud funny for me. But what I want to say about Todd most of all is this: somebody who wants Christ to be more than simply a part of who he is, but wants Christ to be revealed in everything he is. Please give him a warm Wheaton welcome.
I'm a little disappointed. I was going to sing my talk. So thanks for that, Will. Thought humility, Wheaton, hand in hand, no. That was extraordinary. I'm also a little surprised. Be wary of the whole Alumni Association. What they don't tell you is that, yes, if you win Alumni of the Year, you get lunches and dinners and a trip to Hawaii. I don't know if they told you that yet. But if you come in second, you have to speak at chapel. There are two kinds of stories. Some say there's a man goes on a journey and a stranger comes to town. And you're told that at the beginning of your writing career, whatever story you're working on, it's either that or the other. There's no in between. Well, actually, my life has taught me something very different, that I do believe there are two kinds of stories, but for me, those stories are boy stands on a ledge or guy walks into a bar. Now, everybody knows guy walks into a bar is the beginning of 1,000 bad jokes. You know, like potato walks into a bar and the bartender says, "I'm sorry, we don't serve food here." But no matter how bad they may be, or there's many that are quite more long-winded, I don't have the time on my short clock today to tell the really good ones. No matter how convoluted or confusing the lead-up might be, they all end with a laugh. So, which story do you want to hear? Which story is your life? Both. Some days it's a comedy, and some days, often most days, it feels more like a tragedy. Or if not a tragedy, then certainly a tragedy waiting to happen. My life at Wheaton was definitely both. But if you don't get rescued off the ledge, you never get to laugh at the joke. We have a rescuing Savior. This is no accident. We are in trouble. God knows this, and God cares. And if he feels late, he's already there. He doesn't have to suit up and fly in at the last moment. He's beside you and within you, closer than close. You ever wake up and say, this is going to be a great day? You just feel it in your bones. Today is going to be one of the best days of my life. This is the day that the Lord has made. Well, August 29th, about 5 weeks ago, I woke up and said to my wife, this is going to be a great day. This is going to be one of the keepers. My dad, who's over there, was turning 84. We were in Ireland visiting my in-laws. My wife is Irish, and it was sunny in County Kildare for the first time since 1964. There was also fantastic news on the precipice of happening work-wise. Something was really coming together, and I just felt, just full of life and hope and praise for God. And yes, it was all yes that morning. 2 hours later, we were in an ambulance. Our 2-year-old daughter, Remy, had fallen from a height, and we were being rushed to the hospital. The paramedic is saying that if we don't keep her awake, she may lapse into a coma. She spends the entire day vomiting. We're waiting. What do we do? The doctors don't know what to do. She's too young for certain tests, but she's getting worse. Finally, the only choice left is to do a brain scan. And suddenly you sit with the possibility that this is not just a fall. This is not just a scary day. This is not a great day. This is the worst day. You pray, you try to push all that away. I look at my wife's worry in her eyes. Finally, the doctors say, we have to do the brain scan. It's the only choice. If there's bleeding on the brain, then we'll have to operate. So I walk our little 2-year-old down the hall towards the scan. And just before we reach the room, she says, Carmelita. I'm like, that's not a good sign. What is Carmelita? And I said, what, Remy, what? She goes, Carmelita. And the woman that was walking with us, the nurse who was taking us down, I said, what is your name? She said, Carmelita. Remy had heard us talking or heard the nurse talking and somehow put the thought together, and I could see the return of my daughter. I could see her coming back to life. Carmelita, she said. I'm Remy. We stayed overnight in the hospital for caution's sake, but my restored daughter had no caution. She went room to room asking what was wrong with each patient. She learned the word privacy that night. I explained to her that we couldn't go into every room because of the privacy, and the next day at the house, when I walked into her room, she said, no, Daddy, I need some privacy. When she finally fell asleep that night and I was on the cot next to her sleeping, I looked at Remy's precious little foot through the hospital bed bars, and I knew it had been a great day. Yesterday was supposed to be a great day. After months And in a way, years, everything had coalesced on a dream project that had seemed hand-blessed by God from the very start. All the little miracles along the way had only validated that it was His will unfolding. It was obvious. The expected good news was not just going to lift my boat, it was going to lift a lot of boats. And the word was, of course, going to be yes. It could only and exclusively, forever, in this moment, be yes. No. You replay the tape 1,000 times. You reread the email. You listen to the message. No? It can't be no. This was the one after all the other ones. This was the one that made perfect sense. It was so clearly God's plan. I actually had a whole bit for this talk about how God so graciously laid out this precise pathway, this yes that yesterday came back as no. My precious mom, who would definitely be the happiest person in Edmond today if she were here, she'd always wanted me to be a preacher. But I don't look good in robes, I told her. Few do. I've seen some photos of Dr. Riken. He looks very good in a robe. My mother, Mary Grace, the love of my dad's life, was diagnosed with a small tumor in her lung, and this was back in 2009, and 7 weeks later, she was with the Lord. 7 weeks. She was fine, and then she was gone. My dad, George, my hero, he's beaten cancer 3 times. He was revived in the ER, brought back from death after total heart failure, 12 days before my mom died. He has a bovine valve, a pacemaker, and an unkillable soul. My dear friend Rob dove off a boat into shallow water 7 years ago this Memorial Day, and he's paralyzed from the neck down. Everything he used to do is gone except for who he is. Like the blind hear better, Rob, without the use of his body, souls better. And he said, God isn't finished with me yet. I still have some light to spread. Here's the hardest thing about being alive. We never know what's going to happen next. Here's the best thing about being alive. We never know what's going to happen next. But we do know how it's going to end. If we dare to believe Romans 8:28, that all things lead together for good to those that love God, if we dare to believe 1 John 4:18, there is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear, and Romans 8:31, if God is for us, who can be against us? Then we are free. As free as a baby. How can we live any way but fearlessly? What are we doing? How can we not take each shovel to the head that life greets us with as anything besides vitamins? We are bulletproof with love. Why do we spend time doing anything else? Because we take our eyes off of Christ and affix them onto little old us. And believe me, it's terrifying. Do an exercise. Spend a day, spend a few hours thinking only about yourself. I know that might be hard for the parents and professors. They haven't thought of themselves in decades. Maybe we should do a little stretching before this so we don't pull a muscle. But I'm serious about this. Someday when you're by yourself, try and block out any thought that pertains to the needs of others, the suffering of the world, the reality of God. Just hunker down in a nice, tub of self. And see how sick you get, how dislocated every bone feels, how alone you are. And then remember that that little exercise is something that we repeat 1,000 times every day, all day. Now, the story I'm telling you today, it is my story, but I am not its lead character. Thank God. I tried to be the star of my own life, and the pit of despair I dug, the darkness I inhaled. Spring baseball trip, 1984. I wrote the suicide note. It ran like a triangle down into the corner of the page. The apologies, the inescapability of the blackness all around me, the madness that had tied my psyche to a tree. My roommate on the trip, Steve Nagel, asked me what I was hunched over writing so feverishly. I read it to him. I was 18. He was 19. We were kids. He asked me what I was going to do. I said I didn't know, but I was doing it tonight. I was going to wait till the coaches fell asleep and then go out into the Florida night to my end. And Steve said, "You're going to have to get by me first." I stayed up all night waiting for him to fall asleep, but he never left his watch. I finally dozed from 6 to 7 in the morning, and I woke up, and he was sleeping, sitting up, blocking the door. Steve Nagel saved my life. Jesus with a crew cut, blocking me from death's door, literally. But even that didn't cure my depression, because I was still spiritually dead, having rejected God and his obvious fictional self. Countless nights during my sophomore year, I'd take to the roof of Traber dorm and stand on the ledge, the boy on the ledge, and close my eyes 8 stories above the ground. I was hoping the wind would have the courage that I lacked. Being on the verge of jumping always made me think about my amazing parents and my sisters and their unbearable grief, the cruelty of that legacy, and somehow falling seemed like less of a murder. When I look back, I can feel a light pressure against the small of my back, a hand holding my belt, unwilling to let me go. And a year later, when I finally dared to take the tiniest steps toward Christ, I knew it was his hand that had been doing the holding. I was never alone on that roof. Jesus had my back. I know what it feels like to be spectacularly saved. And it has made every moment of my life since electric with love and hope and possibility. I still cannot believe I'm alive. I'm not joking. The fact that I'm standing up here remains an out-of-body experience. I'm alive. I got to become a writer. That God gave me the gift of Dr. Jill Baumgartner here, senior year, who spotted a very small talent and dared me to plant and feed and water it. That my father, George, and I, though always close in growing up years, would go on to become best friends with a shared intensity for the truth and the pursuit of the perfect law of liberty. That I got to see a girl walking down Mercer Street straight into my heart, my amazing wife, Jane. I would have missed the joy of her. And Remy, our little girl, for whom there are no words. On December 21st, a new Komarnicki will arrive. And I'll be able to hold and tickle and wrestle and teach and learn from all over again. I'm still here. I can't believe it. Only 2 stories. Boy on a ledge became guy walks into a bar. The tragedy became the laughter. Like when Peter cursed out Jesus when he was on his way to die. Or think about the Saturday after the crucifixion. For the 11 and more, it was them on the ledge. An unsurpassed sadness. No rescue to come. No Jesus at their side. Only Jesus in the ground. Their shock at the resurrection proves they didn't expect it. They thought they'd been abandoned by the one to whom they'd given all. So it is when we hear our no's. After enough disappointment, we begin to think, you know what? Maybe there is no Sunday. We get stuck on the ledge and we stop looking to Christ and his promises. So honed in on ourselves and what we didn't get. But he's already given his all, his full self, and he calls us to do the same. Not because he needs obedient disciples to prove his godliness, but because he knows that when we give ourselves away, we are finally happy, truly joyous, clicked into the rhythm of God's will, loved into loving, unstoppable. When you feel your story is too dark to turn another page, when all the yeses you were promised, even lip readers watching from a distance can see are no, when today is the one place you can't bear to be, remember the promises. They've outlived every generation and they still clap out like thunder with their truth. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain. Those who go out weeping, carrying seed to sow, will return with songs of joy, carrying sheaves with them. My sheep listen to my voice. I know them and they follow me. I give them eternal life and they shall never perish. No one will snatch them out of my hand. My Father who has given them to me is greater than all, and no one can snatch them out of my Father's hand. All the promises of God find their yes in Christ. I don't know what's going to happen next. None of us know how our stories will end. And when things get difficult, don't move at our speed. It's like being stuck in traffic. It makes us nuts. What is going on? When will it clear? When will I get to go where I want to go? The place I'm currently being kept from reaching. It's funny how we want everything now, but we're so terrible at living in the present. Ever send a text? How about the miracle of sending a text? Why haven't they responded? What are they doing? Are they busy? Did they not like me? Did I get the wrong number? Maybe I should check. Is my phone died? Is the battery? We can't wait. The fact is, a great book needs every page. A brilliant symphony needs the French horn as much as the oboe and the timpani. Take something as simple as the distributor cap off the genius of a BMW, and it won't work. These hard portions of our life that we're trying to fast forward through, let's just get to the good part. There is no good part without the pain. Rough mercy, yes, but mercy. Mercy. We don't know what's on the next page, even the next sentence, but we know how the story will end. Love at the beginning, love in the middle, love when the curtain falls. The worst things that ever happened to me are the garden in which the best things that ever happened to me were planted. The garden where the worst thing that ever happened to Jesus began became the best thing that ever happened to humanity. That's my story. That's our story. Let's live it.